The Stop the War Brigade actually had its birth right here in Germany. The original group included US soldiers, active duty soldiers, who were protesting the involvement of the United States in the Iraq War and future wars. Make no mistake, there is resistance in the United States military. In fact, in every military, when they figure out that something's wrong. And it's very important this group of people is here because it demonstrates something. It demonstrates people's interest in what's going on. This is a movie called Only the Beginning. And these soldiers, or the former veterans, are standing in front of the U.S. Capitol. And what they're doing is throwing back their medals on the steps of the Capitol.
For Skip Wall, Sheriff, Sarasota, Florida, an Army Commendation Medal, and all my stuff.
Terry DeMont, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Purple Heart, and CID. Ron Pogleski, Woolpack, New York, a lot of shit.
Walt Kurtz, Tennessee, 4 Bronze Stars. Right on.
I pray that time will forgive me and my brothers what we did. And only those lumping pigs behind those closed doors have to suffer, and not the young kids and the unborn kids. Brothers and sisters of Kent. For the brothers and sisters this year.
Today's the 4th of July, the evening, and it's a special event. It's not what you would expect normally, it's not so joyful, it's rather gloomy, I would say. But you said that there's a certain kind of resemblance to the situation we have now in Germany. We are entering a state where the preparing for war is very fashionable, I would say. Merz made it his biggest topic in politics. So you say we have to resist.
Yes, we must resist. And because if we don't resist, I'm not one to say history will repeat itself. History doesn't work that way. Although some of the same pitfalls, some of the same dangers can occur. That's a situation we find ourselves in. It's not a carbon copy of 1933, but it's close enough. It's too close. And as I said, I talked about the speed at which the Trump regime is guaranteeing its position. There's even talk about him running for a 3rd term. Well, that's against the Constitution. What did they do? They negate the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't mean anything. That's why the American government is irrelevant to me.
So here, what we see here in the background is the movie about these veterans who, after they came back from Vietnam, were throwing their certificates and everything, their medal away, their Purple Hearts and whatever they got there. And you can see it's not easy for them to let go, but it was necessary for them, I guess, to do so in order to liberate themselves from this war.
To throw a medal away, something you think you earned by blood, sweat, and tears, is a very, very difficult thing to do. I have the normal service medals, Vietnam campaign, Vietnam this and that, national defense, whatever. So I have a few ribbons. They can have them. I didn't have the opportunity to throw them away, but I will throw them in Trump's face.
Yeah. So you're very hopeful, you're very optimistic.
I'm optimistic. Of course, I've been involved in the anti-war movement since before I was a soldier. In fact, before I went into the Army, November the 18th, 1966. And a few days before I was there, I was at an anti-war rally. So I had this orientation anyway.
You were drafted?
No, I joined.
You joined?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a long story.
All right. Well, we talk about it another time, but it's interesting. We come back to that.
Well, many people join for different reasons. Yes. People join because bad family situation, poverty, adventure. Mm-hmm. Yes. Let me take a look. Yes. And that was part of my orientation. I was curious. Let me check this out. But I learned quickly that I was risking my life. That wasn't necessarily a smart move. But I survived it, and I survived.
Well, that's the most important, so that you can...
I'm a victim of Agent Orange. I'm a disabled vet, yes.
Straight over.
Yeah. I was in the helicopter company, and I didn't know until I read an article on the internet that my company was spraying it. I was in contact with it every day. Yeah.
Well, they don't care much about their own people. I mean, it was the same in Iraq War, the first war, when they were injecting people with whatever it was, and a lot of these veterans died later.
Listen. When you go in the military, they inoculate you, vaccinate you. I'm still trying to figure out the shots that I got. I don't even know. You understand?
Yes, I know.
Maybe it was Agent Orange or the inoculations, the vaccinations. I don't know. And because they don't say anything, they never tell you. They're criminals. They're only interested in their own imperialist expansion.
So what's your perspective for the future? What do you see? I mean, you say that the United States is heading towards a dictatorship, but there's also, if there's bad, there's evil, there's also good. So there must rise a resistance right now.
Well, there's a resistance, and the question of where it's at, how effective it is a question that it will be determined by history, But I'm confident if the correct work is done, if activities are undertaken, that we have the high ground. We shouldn't forget that. We have so many advantages. The greatest advantage we have is the veterans. The veterans. This is, yeah.
That's very interesting, because I heard about some people who were also involved in the American military, and there's a big resentment towards war, and they want to rather be not bothered with all these brutality and all this.
Yeah, of course. That's their orientation, their socialization. And Yes, the question of death. It's a clear question. They prepare you for this death. They talk about taking care of wounded soldiers, dying soldiers. They talk about death. They talk about the right of you to facilitate murder. You know, you're expected to kill.
What would you tell people who are in the military? What should they do in order to subvert, to do something like, if you would be in the Israeli military and you would serve in Gaza right now, what would you do?
Well, we have a website. The Stop the War Brigade has a website, and we have a section that's connected to a link to the refuseniks, who are Israeli soldiers. We haven't followed their activities of late, but I will do that. I'm sure there's resistance in the Israeli army, as in any army. There's always resistance because of the conditions, inhumane conditions that exist, slavery conditions. And so with that, and the specter of death confronting the soldiers and their own political views, they will come to the surface. There's no question about that.
All right, so Sam, you're an artist. You live in Berlin since
87.
87, so you're nearly naturalized Berliner.
Yeah, I ain't going back to America.
You're not going back?
No.
Oh. So what connects you to this event today? It's rather a political thing. You know, it's not the typical 4th of July remembrance event. It's rather critical towards the situation right now in the States. So what's your take on it?
Well, I was supposed to go to Vietnam. I was drafted at 19, and because of a football injury, at 18 they didn't take me. And then I started going to all the demonstrations against the Vietnam War and all the things that America does. We've been doing it since about 76. And then, yeah. And then when I met Darnell and stuff like that, he got me involved to play his. It was during the start of the Iraq War, so we were doing all the big demonstrations. And
Second Iraq War, the second or the first?
The one with George Bush.
With George Bush, yes, the second.
Yeah. So he started that, and we were doing it. And then I told him about Norton, who paints live, and then Daryl, who was on bass, and a few other people who are dead. He got a thing to go to Istanbul and play for 40,000 Kurds. Oh. Yeah, so we played for them, and we were doing all of it. We flew to San Francisco. We played there, and then every time Darnell needed me for some stuff, I would come there, and I always was with what I did with Darnell is I always did the percussion, and I ran all the samples and all the political stuff.
Does your political engagement have something to do with the fact that you're Native American?
Oh yeah. I mean, I grew up with racism. I grew up in Watts, the first riots in America. I was there. And they brought in tanks and stuff like that, and people were thinking. We started the first riots across America. I grew up with racism when my family, my aunt had a cattle ranch in Wyoming, and we would drive all the way across, and I never forget it, Provo, Utah. And we went in to go in there, and everybody looked at us, and on the door it said, "No Indians and no niggers allowed." And yeah, and we walked in there because we're LA kids, right? You know, we said, "Fuck that," you know. We're going, and then the white woman came to us and says, "We don't like your kind here. If you don't leave, we're going to call the police," right? Like this, and you just saw all this hate and racists come out like that, and then the government's corrupt because look at like this. Obama is a black man. He was president, but he never shut down the right-wing supremacists or the KKK, who are terrorists for over 100 years, right? So you see that there's something in the government that they don't touch certain things, right? Yeah, deep state. And what's happening is here, what people don't realize, all this stuff, is that when Reagan was in, and he broke the union and stuff, what's happening now, it's been planned for the last 60 years, that it's going to end up like this, you know? The thing is, Darnell says, I'm pissed at both parties, and just recently, the Texas black senator made a movement in Congress to impeach Trump. 128 Democrats voted no.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is that? They're part of the game. You know what I mean? I mean, they're all part of the shit, you know? So Darnell, we had arguments about this, and I, he said he don't vote and stuff like that. And I said, what's the other term? But my theory was, well, you vote for the lesser of the two evils, right? But now you see, they're both the same motherfuckers. You know what I mean? I'm so pissed off. The native people are still going through shit. You know what I mean? I have an uncle that lived in Arizona on a reservation. They didn't have running water and electricity as of 20 years ago. Yeah, and then the government, they made reservations for all this stuff and everything was good. Then the government found uranium when they want to take the land back, and it never stops, right? It never stops. Yeah.
So what's your perspective for the future for the states and for us, because we are connected very deeply.
I heard that Putin, if the European community starts helping Ukraine, he's going to bomb Europe, and the first city he's going to take out is Berlin. And I can't wait till he pushes the fucking button, because I'm sick of this shit. You know. Well, I think the one thing, Trump wants to get rid of New York. I think there's going to be a succession. In like the blue states, which that's going to cause a war, because they're the ones that support the whole government. The red states are all bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
California, I'm from California. It's the sixth most money coming in above countries, right? But I think, and that's why Trump's going after it, right? He's going after all these guys like that. And I think that with this new bill, and this shit's going to see, and I get my Social Security from America, right? This pays for the rent of my studio, and I'm worried about it, because when they cut it, I'm really fucked, And so I think when people start dying in droves and stuff, there is going to be some kind of revolution. You know what I mean?
What do you think about Trump? He promised the American people to keep them out of wars. Now he started a war with Iran. He also promised it to his own people, and I think they're very not happy about it.
America, from the 1800s, has a history of war. I sent them all the wars that America and overthrow governments, right?
Nearly every year.
Yeah. They're behind, and Israel is the cause of 4 wars that America is involved with, right? And I try to give these guys and people a little bit of history, because they think America is the beautiful and it's all great.
Let's see how what the future will bring us. Yeah. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe there's an uptick. We don't know. Maybe there's a big change that we didn't expect.
Yeah, I think that the good thing is that all we can do is stuff like this, make people aware, and hopefully they come to the other side and say, hey man, the way America is going is not thing.